Hi everybody, welcome back to the Movie Reviewers 100, and I wanted to say a special thank you to Ray for mentioning me in his video earlier this week. He said he was really looking forward to my video, and he said he had some very nice things to say about me, so thanks Ray. It's Michael Caine week, and Michael Caine is an actor who I've been somewhat familiar with from a young age. But I think probably the film that made the biggest impression on me when I was younger was A Shock to the System, which was a pretty small movie, didn't get a lot of attention when it came out, but I really think it's quite excellent. It's directed by a guy named Jan Engelson, and Michael Caine lives in New York City. He's an executive for a marketing company, I believe. And he gets passed over for promotion, and he accidentally kills a guy basically that very day, and so then he decides, hey, maybe killing people is a good way to get ahead, you know, it's a nice shortcut, and it's actually a pretty funny movie, so I'd recommend that one. Elizabeth McGovern is also in it. But the film that I wanted to talk about today was actually one that I hadn't seen already. I had a contest a couple years ago in which I invited some of my viewers to recommend films that I should see twice in a row. I called it the consecutive contest, whereby basically a movie that I hadn't seen before, I would watch it all the way through and then immediately restart and watch the entire thing again, watch it twice in a row. And whichever film was the least boring on its second viewing would be the winner, basically, whoever submitted that film. And the winner at the time turned out to be Cadillac Records, because it was sort of an episodic drama covering a long history, and so you know, from one screen to the next, I couldn't remember everything that happened. Anyway, one of the people submitted Harry Brown as an idea, or as a candidate, and I didn't end up choosing to see that one. I picked 5 others. But it's been on my radar for a while, so I finally got around to seeing it. I don't remember the name of the director offhand, but he's a first-timer, hasn't done anything before. He's got a second film in the works right now, but it hasn't been released. But the little that I knew about this movie sounded like, you know, a good, fun action film, basically, with Michael Caine playing a retiree, and he has to deal with the teen gangs in his neighborhood where he lives in England. Of course, Michael Caine is a British actor, and he's you know, been in a lot of American films, of course, but this one's set in England. And what I got was something very different, at least for the first half. The first half of the movie is actually a very, very serious film, but the second half changes into more of a balls-out revenge flick. So that left me somewhat disappointed. Excuse me, there's an airplane flying overhead. It'll pass in a moment. So anyway, there it goes. So yeah, as the film begins, Michael Caine is a retiree, and he's living on his own in an apartment. His wife is in the hospital, and she dies within like the first 15 minutes of the movie. So he buries her next to their daughter, who died when she was about 11 years old. And really the only people that he interacts with on a daily basis is the bartender of his favorite watering hole, and his old friend who's his partner in chess matches. They play chess against each other. Well, his friend tells him that he's been having trouble with the gangs in their neighborhood. Oh, there's a name for the housing project. Something sort of elegant, but obviously not. It's a little rundown housing project that's been around forever. And there's a lot of drug activity and shootings going on. Actually, the opening scene of the movie is a kid basically filming on his phone a gang initiation, whereby then he runs around on a motorcycle and shoots at people, and actually shoots down a single mother as she's pushing her baby stroller through the park. Michael Caine's friend tells him that he's been harassed by these kids. He's really tired of it, and he shows him he's got like a bayonet. He's got like a really, really long blade. He's going to go and challenge the gang. And his friend turns up dead the next day. And there's a cop played by Emily Mortimer, Emily Mortimer, who comes to visit Michael Caine, Harry Brown, and asks him about what happened. And he's like, well, you know, he told me that he went to the police years ago about this, and they didn't do anything about it. So, you know, I mean, it's sort of out of his hands at this point. But Caine decides that, as it turns out, he used to be in the Marines. And I thought, when's this going to come out exactly? I'm watching, and I knew what was going to happen. I knew that he was eventually going to turn vigilante. But what I was anticipating is that he's got some sort of military or maybe SAS background. As it turns out, he used to be in the Marines. So he hauls out his old gear and starts to go to work on the gangs and develops a strategy for picking off the kids who murdered his friend, along with anyone else that happens to get in his way. There's a really good scene, and man, it's just about the skeeziest drug dealer you've ever seen. He's got a lot of tattoos on his body, but he also got a lot of marks. They could be scars. I don't know what they are, but he just looks like the most wasted, gross-out guy ever. He goes to him looking for weapons, and that turns bad. Now, what I didn't like about this movie is that, first of all, I thought it would be like one of the, the vigilante revenge flick, and I knew basically what the premise was, and I figured that it would be Michael Caine gearing up and getting ready to take on the gangs in his neighborhood. But, like I said, the first part of the movie is extremely serious and downbeat and grim. And the second part, while also grim, is nevertheless more of a ride, more of an action thriller type thing, where he has this elaborate plan to get back at the guys, murdered his friend, and eradicate the gang. So the two pieces don't really mesh. And additionally, there's a secondary character, really sort of like bystander really to all this, who turns out to be Michael Caine's nemesis in the end. It's like, oh, one of the kids in the gang, he's actually related to this guy over here. He's Uncle Bob to this kid who was in the gang. So Uncle Bob is now, Michael Caine's nemesis, and they have, all the characters sort of converge accidentally at the same place in the end, so they can have a big shootout. I'm just like, whatever, seriously. There's another thing that I noticed about this movie, and this bothers me only once in a while. In most escapist movies, oh, by the way, I should just show you this. This is a toy gun. It's a plastic gun. It's not real, of course, so no need to worry. People, in escapist movies, they'll fire off all kinds of rounds. Bang, 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 bang. They'll just shoot up the place, and without really taking into the account the physical reaction of a pistol when you fire it. If you've got a high caliber gun, it's gonna buck in your hand. It's got recoil. So whenever someone fires a gun, it's supposed to go like that. It's supposed to, kick back a little bit once you fire it. But, you've got guys who are just squeezing off, bullet after bullet, and it's like, the bullet's going out, but there's no sort of back blow at all, and that's very unrealistic. And that happens a couple times. I figured a realistic movie would have, Michael Caine would be trained to, sort of, make the gun, kick in his hand as he pulled the trigger. They're just firing blanks, so there's no recoil on it, The compression of the explosion in the barrel, basically, that forces the bullet out, also forces the slide back here and chambers the next round, but it also kicks in your hand. So when you just pull the trigger like that, then obviously you're not firing real bullets, and so when that happens, I take note of it. Now, as I said, an escapist movie, if it's like G.I. Joe or Mission Impossible, Transformers, something like that, I don't expect people to realistically, simulate the blowback, because it's, it's escapism. But this is supposed to be more real. At least it started off more real, so that was just one of those details that bothered me. I'd say I liked the movie overall. I was recommended to listen to the commentary, and since I've rented the disc for only a limited number of days, I don't know if I'll have time to listen to it. But Michael Caine and the director participated in the commentary, and apparently Michael Caine talks a lot about his whole career and his life, which is pretty interesting. Am I still recording here? Oh, that's good. Yeah. It's a little far away. It's kind of hard to see exactly. A decent movie, but not a great one. And it reminded me of a bunch of other flicks in the meantime, especially when you have, the cop, Emily Mortimer, who's slowly putting together that there's a vigilante, and it's probably Michael Caine. Remind me a lot of The Brave one with Jodie Foster. It's the same kind of thing, Jodie Foster's husband gets killed, so she buys a black market gun, goes after the gangs. Meanwhile, she's dealing with a cop, Terrence Howard. It's the same thing in this movie. Michael Caine's best friend gets killed, so he gets a gun, goes after the gangs. Meanwhile, the cop, played by Emily Mortimer's, trying to figure out what he's up to. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, more or less the same movie, just in a different setting. Anyway, that is my review for Harry Brown. Oh, and I'm pleased to say that the credits actually say in the beginning of the movie, Michael Caine is Harry Brown. But again, it's like more of an exploitational sort of touch when the film itself at least starts out serious and then becomes something a little more action-oriented. There's a really good riot scene in the movie as well. And clearly the gangs are like totally out of control. There's some good violent moments in this, but yeah, there's this disparity in the tone, you know. So I'm not 100% on that. Not that I would disrecommend it because of that, but yeah, I wasn't really sure whether the movie was really trying to be serious or not. You know, it tries to be serious for most of it, but at the end it sort of succumbs to the usual action movie cliches, you know. And of course, at one point Michael Caine takes a bullet, but apparently doesn't, you know, although there's blood and everything like that, doesn't really do him a lot of damage. In the end, anyway. So that's it for now. We've got another theme starting on Friday, so please tune in for that. Thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it. Have a good one.